What, you think I'm gonna eat playing cards for breakfast? That's for lunch! If somebody ever tells you that gaming is slow, ask them to play indies. No, make them! There is an ocean of inventive, weird, and unnerving games being released all the time. The creative spirit of indies is so potent. Small teams experimenting with unique mechanics, narratives, or presentation that might be too risky for a big AAA title. And the best part, you can probably play 8 of them before you reach level 3 in Metaphor. And there are always high-profile indie games every year, but 2024 just felt like something with a whole bunch of good indie games in it. Balatro is the game that I played the most last year, besides Old Faithful. I would play this shit on my PC and then go take a shit in my toilet and play an entirely different instance of the game on my phone. There's not much about Super Poker that thousands of others haven't said already. The gameplay is obviously so fun and inventive, and it's so satisfying to watch people not know what the game is and then later return in a daze to sing its praises. But what impresses me even more than the gameplay is how purposeful everything else in the game is. Its sound design, the physicality of the cards, so good. The fire that erupts when you play a winning hand. The only song that I would bring to a desert island, and this background animation that I'm gonna stare at until Gygas comes back to claim his throne. All of those details stack together to create the hypnotic body high that you'll remember for a long time, whether a casual player or an insane one.
Come on, motherfucker, let's go!
Not to mention other games like UFO 50, which is actually 50 games, and I've still only played about 10. I'm so overwhelmed by how cool of a project this game is. I mean, it's 50 games! Arcade games, full-length adventure games, RPGs, whatever the hell Mooncat is! Retro style, but with modern game design. And even then, it's more than the sum of its parts. For every game you play for the first time, you literally blow dust off of it, only to fumble in the dark to figure out what the game even is. It's similar to finding a box of 50 new-to-you hand-me-down games, which is actually the overall story of the game. Each game in the box is another entry in a fictional game dev studio's history, created for a fictional console. It feels so comprehensive and is a love letter to such a special organic feeling with so many cool secrets to find out along the way. I'll be playing this one for years. Also, Party House deserved its own Game of the Year nomination. And Animal Well. I have never, ever played a game like this. It's hard to describe, so I won't really. It's worth going in pretty much completely blind. If you like Outer Wilds, if you like Tunic, if you like Rain World, or just puzzles, you'll be at home here. The amount of oh my fucking god moments you'll have hanging with this little guy. But again, it's all these little details in this game that help create that giant oh my fucking god. The neon pixel caverns, the dynamic environment, the ominous architecture, and the sound design that makes all of this feel like a dozen dimensions beyond just 2. Also, the haptic feedback on the Switch for this game feels so incredible. I can feel each one of these little tendrils as I walk by them. It's a game that just feels alive, like an animal, and deep, like a well. It is truly a 10 out of 10 game, and my experience playing it is something that I will treasure forever. And any one of these guys would be a contender for my top slot of 2024 if I could finally stop thinking about breakfast.
Can you cook eggs on top of Mount Everest? I don't think so. So make me an egg, cooked on both sides, as always.
Arctic Eggs is about cooking eggs, holding them in a pan, flipping them around, and not letting them hit the ground. Or you start over. It's a pretty simple premise. Over time, patrons request new ingredients to be added. Some of them are pretty typical, and others are even more typical, like cigarettes, or a pufferfish, or a bullet. Oh, fuck! Usually folks chat with you as you cook, and more or less, that's the whole game. It's only like 3 hours long, or 4 if you aren't very talented.
Flip it now! Flip it out! Flip the egg now! Flip the egg! Flip the egg! Flip the egg!
And my brain is telling me that it's my favorite game of 2024. If you're used to more conventional titles, that might seem completely absurd. How could a micro game about flipping eggs beat out massively impressive works of art like Metaphor or Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, or more importantly, the indie darlings I mentioned earlier? For my favorite game of the year, that should be reserved for DLC! A quick aside, but unfortunately for the culture, I am a Twitch streamer. You might know me from being a little crazy, a little wacky. That's just what makes me so unique. I have the benefit of my friends and audience constantly sending me weird games to try. Some of them were incredible, and some of them...
Wait, what?
Engaging with so much niche art, in addition to creating my own content or my own music that I pour my heart into, which, by the way, I make music and it sounds like this.
Hey, it's
If you like that, link is in the description. Thank you so much, so much, so much. It all really had me thinking, what is it about art that I love the most? Whether in my creation or participation with a work, what are the common elements that truly bring me to say, that is my favorite? I mean, the game is about eggs and cigarettes. Just what is going on? It is a goddamn miracle that any video game ever gets made, or any piece of art. Nothing is completed without a chain of tens of thousands of creative decisions stemming from a cohesive vision. For games, the big decisions are obviously important. What the story is, what the core mechanics are, the general art direction. But what I'm obsessed with is the other tens of 997s of decisions. All the little ones. The rising pitch in each plink of points earned. How the haptics feel when you're walking through the vines, blowing dust off of a cartridge. The cheerleader entrance sound. These small decisions make a game that isn't just fun to play, but feel good. You might not notice them immediately. Some of them you might never notice, but they had an effect on you. When you desperately wish you could experience a game for the first time again, it's those sparks in the corner of your mind. Arctic Eggs is so flippin' weird. I mean, don't get me wrong, the core mechanic is so fun. The baseline is cooking eggs on both sides in the pan and being careful not to lose them, like I said, but what I didn't say is how the new ingredients alter that mechanic. The cigarette isn't just funny, now you have to cook the eggs before the cigarette burns out. And you also can't flip it out of the pan either. Or these sardines, we have to cook the tin and then finagle all the little fuckers out of the tin and then cook them. Or the bullet, where you This silly concept gets pulled every single possible direction you could think of, and it made me grin ear to ear every single time. Well, most of the time. Come on, little fish. Come on, little fish. Cook. Cook, you little shit. Cook, you little fuck. Yeah! Boom! And on its own, that mechanic would be enough for a fun game, just like Balatro. Poker but roguelite is still great. But then you got tens of 997s of freaky-ass little detail choices layered on top, baby! You wander around this icy, dystopian tower, caked up with PS1-style graphics, full of characters with grime-tech attire and an unnerving skin condition. I imagine this fellow feels like Jello to the touch. This game has a narrative and themes. You're flipping eggs as some sort of penance for trying to escape from whatever the hell this is. The game's characters have wild, one-sided conversations with you, ranting and raving about everything from the dire state of their Arctic encampment to very obtuse personal philosophy and just really fucked up funny shit. But there's one nagging question that keeps being brought up again and again as you flip your skillet in the snow. You can cook eggs in this town just fine, but could you cook an egg on top of Mount Everest? The game throws all this at you with subtitles lurching on screen across these constantly shifting camera angles that are both funny and connected to the stories that the characters tell. The soundtrack to this game is a mix of ambient, lo-fi, jazz, club music. There's a sitar running around in there. A good soundtrack is good. A great soundtrack lets you live inside the game's world. Like, I'm cold as shit out here. Or like in this club.
God damn, it's fucking loud in here. You want a drink? An IPA? What kind? Just what's on tap? What did you say?
This all culminates into a cohesive and seemingly deep world, but one that doesn't need you to explore it too closely. You just know it's there. Eventually it builds up to a boss fight with an ending that ties together a lot of what the game is trying to say. It's such a genuinely comprehensive and cinematic experience. And again, this game is about frying eggs! Before I ever played Balatro, I remember reading this short piece retweeted by the game's creator, Local Funk. Author Mick Dietz describes in detail their experience watching their grandmother's idle and comforting relationship with Solitaire and Spider Solitaire. It was difficult to pick a single portion that could summarize it, but I settled on this. I like to think she enjoyed imposing order to the chaos, methodically shuffling cards from stack to stack before they filed neatly into numerical and suit-conscious piles. Playing Solitaire always calmed her down and possibly provided a reassurance of reason within our entropic life. Without her around, it's impossible to know exactly what drew her to the game, but after a few days with Balatro, I have an educated guess. On Twitter, Local Funk has described how much playing cards mean to him, and how they connected him to his family, and how he wanted to allow people to experience some of the magic I feel towards playing cards through Balatro. In an interview for the Game Awards YouTube channel, two of the UFO 50 devs describe how they limited themselves to a palette of 32 colors and strict audio channel limits to emulate the feeling of an old console and help immerse you in the world of UFO 50. Each game in the chronology of UFO Soft gets more complex mechanically with sequels and recurring characters. A lot of the games also have multiplayer. They wanted to call back to a time when you would hang out at a friend's house, rummaging through a box of games to find something to play. Billy Basso, the developer of Animal Well, once spoke of it saying, "It's the kind of game that doesn't really communicate very well why it's special. It's a game about secrets and holding back information, and I think that's what makes it really interesting to play. The depth and atmosphere of the art playing into an exploratory adventure, literally stumbling through the dark. These are the details. These are all the other decisions." Probably the proper name for this would be creative direction, but that name suggests the top-down approach from the creators. I like to look at each single creative decision and see how they stack up into that direction, to break apart what can be described as a vibe and discover how a meaningful experience becomes meaningful. All these games are immaculate. Truthfully, I just put Arctic Eggs as my favorite game of the year because it's just so dang weird. How the Water Museum invented this world is such a fun thing for me to think about, and I'm so happy I got to be a part of it. I love art so goddamn much. I can't wait to see all the cool shit that people make just because they want to. People that are so obsessed with the ideas that they have that their hands made them before they even finish thinking about them. And I can't wait to find out each little indention that builds into a shape, that builds into sound and into color and into something to be shared. I don't really have anything else. I just really love video games, man. Oh my God, play indie games. The Water Museum is working on a fishing game next. I'm gonna be there. And also, please listen to my art. It's playing in the background right now. And I'm also on Twitch, where sometimes I play these weird games for you. Okay, bye.